Imagine a lineage cursed and enslaved, lingering in the shadows of Babylonia. Such was the fate of Jesus' predecessors. Take Jeconiah, for instance, a man of royal blood, yet cursed that none from his progeny would ever sit on the throne of Israel. He was kept in primitive conditions in Babylon, a far cry from the comforts of his homeland. But things began to shift after 38 long years. The plight of this Jewish king started to improve. He found himself sitting at the table of the Babylonian king, a move that might have been more strategic than benevolent. The Babylonian king, perhaps, saw an opportunity in Jeconiah's lineage, a chance to rule Israel through them. This is hinted at in the verses of the Bible, like Jeremiah 52, 31, 34, where it said, "Evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year he began to reign, did lift up the head of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, out of prison." But this was not the end of the story. The empire of Babylon fell and Persia rose in its place. The royal lineage of Jeconiah continued, albeit under a different rule. However, the curse seemed to hang over them like a dark cloud, a permanent stain on their lineage. Yet, as we'll see in the next scene, this was not the end of their story. Amidst the curse and the enslavement, there were glimmers of hope, of redemption. Even in the midst of despair, the promise of a brighter tomorrow was never fully extinguished. The curse, it seemed, would forever taint the lineage, but as we'll see, the story takes a surprising turn. From the ashes of Babylonia, a new hope would rise, a hope that would ultimately lead to the birth of Jesus, the fulfillment of a promise that was centuries in the making. Enter Zerubbabel, Jeconiah's grandson, appointed as governor and tasked with rebuilding the temple. The grandson of a cursed king, Zerubbabel was to be the torchbearer of a new era, an era of restoration and hope. Zerubbabel set to work, his hands shaping the future of the Israelites. However, his noble efforts were met with resistance. The locals, perhaps wary of change, protested against the rebuilding. The temple's construction halted, its future uncertain. The Persian king, swayed by the locals, put a stop to the project. Yet, the silence of the construction site was not to last. When King Darius ascended to the throne, the winds of change blew once again. Darius gave his blessing, and the construction roared back to life. Brick by brick, the temple slowly began to take shape. But, as it neared completion, it was clear this temple was not like its predecessor. It was smaller, less grand, a humble echo of the magnificent Solomon's temple. Yet the prophets, in their wisdom, urged the people not to despise these small beginnings. They pointed to Zerubbabel, saying, "From his hands, a smaller temple has risen, but in the eyes of God, it shines as brightly as Solomon's." The prophet Haggai declared, "For who has despised the day of small things? These 7 will rejoice when they see the plumb line in the hand of Zerubbabel." And Zechariah proclaimed, "On that day, declares the Lord of hosts, I will take you, O Zerubbabel, my servant, and make you like a signet ring, for I have chosen you." From the ashes of despair, the signet ring was restored. Zerubbabel, a beacon of hope in a lineage thought to be cursed. The temple, though small, stood as a testament to the resilience of the Israelites and the enduring mercy of God. It was a symbol of a promise kept, a covenant honored, and a faith undying. A small beginning perhaps, but a beginning nonetheless. The glory of Zerubbabel was short-lived. The Davidic dynasty dwindled, becoming a mere shadow of its former self. After Zerubbabel, the once mighty lineage of David began to fade into obscurity, its royal influence waning. Yet even as the dynasty seemed to recede into the annals of history, the temple staying relatively small, a builder emerged in the form of Herod the Great. Herod, though not of Davidic blood, undertook a monumental task to extend and embellish the temple that Zerubbabel had started. His grand project turned the modest temple into a magnificent place of worship, far exceeding even the splendor of Solomon's temple. This was the temple that would stand to receive Jesus, the promised Messiah. Herod's temple, in all its glory, was not just about architectural grandeur, it was a symbol of restoration, a beacon of hope for a people whose lineage had been marked by a curse and a fall from grace. Here was a temple that stood as a testament to God's promise, a promise that a descendant of David would reign again. And so it was, in the grandeur of Herod's temple, the Messiah found his home. The temple that began as a humble construction under Zerubbabel now held a glory far beyond its physical form, for it was the dwelling place of the Savior, Jesus Christ. In the Jewish practice of gematria, each letter has a numeric value. David's name equals 14, a number that holds profound significance. This ancient tradition of assigning numerical value to letters is a fascinating aspect of Jewish culture. It's not just a simple arithmetic game, but a deep, symbolic way to interpret the spiritual truths of the scriptures. Now let's take a closer look at the number 14. It is not just a random number. It is the numerical value of King David's name, the patriarch of the dynasty in which Jesus was born. Matthew in his Gospel makes a compelling case for the validation of the Davidic dynasty by arranging Jesus' genealogy into 3 sets of 14 generations. This wasn't merely a convenient way to organize the lineage, it was a symbolic affirmation of Jesus' rightful place in the Davidic line, a validation of the dynasty despite the curse on Jeconiah. Matthew's use of the number 14 3 times is a powerful message. It implies that God's promise to David, which seemed to be nullified by the curse on Jeconiah, was not void. It was simply waiting to be fulfilled in the most extraordinary way. The promise was not biologically passed down, but legally validated by God himself through Jesus, the Messiah. Through trials, tribulations, and a curse, the Davidic dynasty endured. In Jesus, God's promise was fulfilled, proving that hope can bloom even in the most desolate places.